The smarter you are, the more dangerous the first sentence of a shelf vignette is. Meet Mike, an MD PhD with a doctorate in head and neck cancer who matched into ENT. He has an emergency medicine shelf retake in 10 days. On every question he got wrong, he read the first sentence, locked onto a diagnosis, and never let the rest change his mind. Shelf exams are built to catch students who do exactly that. Watch as I show him the diagnostic move he should have been making all along. Then, stick around for the card type that took one of my students from low 80s to a 95 on her surgery shelf.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I work hard. I don't know if I have really been good at taking exams ever in my life, but so I just think, I feel like I have no idea what the best way to go about any of this is. And I've tried many different approaches and nothing's really worked. So I think the knowledge is there. I just don't really know how to keep it there or.
So which would you prefer? Like, do you want to just try it on your own? Or do you want me to tell you like explicitly what you should do and just follow that path?
I think I would prefer the latter.
What I would tell you if you wanted to actually know if this is working or not, right, is actually follow the process of making cards in the entire first aid section. You make the fronts of cards, like you put it together in your head, like make sure that you can make sense of it. And then like you can have AI help you to make the backs of cards, right? Because it does a good job. And then, and as long as you know it, you should be able to look at it and be like, oh yeah, no, that's true. That makes sense. And you can catch like hallucinations. And then you do 5-question blocks on the subtopic that you are studying from all of the systems or all of the specialties, not just emergency medicine, and see, can you get 80% on 10 consecutive questions within 3 or 4 or 5-question blocks? Right? Because then you'll know pretty quick, right? Like you'll have that fast feedback loop of like, I did this thing and my score went up or it didn't. And if it didn't go up, then we can isolate it, right? Because as long as you made cards and you understood all the material, then we will know definitively that it's not a problem of knowledge, it is a problem of interpretation. How about this question? So this question right here, you chose thrombin time and the answer was urine toxicreen. So walk me through your, like, what was the reason that you chose urine toxicreen as opposed to, well, I'm going to guess that this was maybe a misdiagnosis problem?
I think I just saw hemorrhage, elevated vitals, and I thought perhaps the most likely thing to have caused the hemorrhage is maybe some clotting issue.
So even though it said left thalamic hemorrhage, you still thought subarachnoid hemorrhage?
Maybe, I mean, you might get confused with another question. But yeah, I just thought it was hemorrhage and not really cooking. I got hooked on those words. And
Great. So in other words, I think you anchored on the first sentence, you decided what you knew what it was?
Yeah.
And then the rest, it was kind of like a blur.
Basically, yeah.
Okay. Great. How often do you do that?
A lot. I would say
okay,
a lot.
Great. We can help with that. Oh man, it sounds like what's going on is that you're somewhat going on autopilot, and you're relying almost exclusively on sort of like very quick sort of system one thinking, and you don't have like sometimes that'll work, but on a test like Step 2, or shelf exams, it can kill you. Because there's going to be enough noise. we say like there's going to be enough rope to hang yourself on multiple alternative diagnoses. Like you can see how they play this game, right? Sudden onset severe headache, like that sounds like it could be a subarachnoid, right? This one they made sound really like it could be a subarachnoid, right? Severe onset, like really bad, like acute onset, very very bad headache, like yeah, subarachnoid. Like they're going to give you alternatives that sound reasonable because they're going to make the vignette seem like, oh yeah, this could be that thing. It's kind of like if you've ever seen an MI question where they also had GERD, really common on shelf exams in Step 2. Why? Because chest pain, right? Like if they just gave you the classic presentation of an MI with no other thing that it could possibly be, then it's like too easy. Now, the good news is that we actually have a game. You are not the only person that anchors on the first sentence and decides what it is, and then, is surprised later when the diagnosis wasn't something that was immediately apparent in the first sentence, right? Like Step 2 questions and shelf exam questions are designed to hurt people that anchor on the first sentence and that like anchor on one diagnosis. And I say this because like I have ADHD, like really bad ADHD. And so like my natural instinct is to like go with the first thing that pops into my head, like very, very impulsively, just be like, oh, that's the thing. Oh yeah, subarachnoid hemorrhage. That's it. So I had to train myself not to do that. That was how I got good at these. That was one of the ways. Is there like a hobby or something that you're really like really good at? Like hobby, sport, instrument, something like that?
Soccer, I would say.
Soccer. Okay, soccer is great. Okay. But like soccer isn't just like you're good at soccer, right? There's like the dribbling, there's the passing, there's the trapping of the ball when it gets kicked to you, there's shooting, there's all of these like little skills. And even within that, like even if you just take like making a shot, there's like the decision of like which side of the goal you're going to be shooting towards. There's like how you plant your foot, how you turn your body, the position of your foot as you right. Like if you take any skill, you can actually break it down into much smaller elements. And people that are really good at things tend to get really, 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 really detailed in those small elements. And so you're just not thinking about it at the right level yet. So what I want to do is for the rest of the time, I want to try to break down exactly what those skills are and give you a plan on how you can at least start to tackle this. If you find this helpful, be sure to check out our 14-step course below in the description. It's completely free and it can help you skyrocket your scores in 14 steps or less. Be sure to check it out. Instead of just thinking the first thing that comes to mind, this must be it, you have to generate a differential diagnosis for like, maybe 3 things. Because right now you're giving yourself one choice on the menu. And if you happen to be wrong in that first sentence, you're kind of screwed for the rest of the question, right? Not you specifically. Like this is what happens to anyone who anchors on the wrong diagnosis first time, right? It's like some of the time you will be right. Like it's like a slot machine. Like you will win some of the time, but like it's not going to be a really high level. And so if you want to get really good at these tests, you have to increase the likelihood systematically that you're getting the questions correct. Yeah. So we have a DDX game that forces you to do this. It will give you one sentence and it will explicitly tell you, no, 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 don't, you anchored on that first thing. Don't do that. Come up with 3 things that you think are reasonable choices. And then it'll critique your, like what it is that you think that it is. Like just consistent effort. You got to do this like multiple times a day. Like some students that we had one student, he failed step 1 2 times, and then he worked with us. He would like be doing the dishes, and he would like use the voice mode of ChatGPT, and he would just like talk it out. Just like anytime, he would just do this, like so in the car, like whatever, like be safe. Okay, the second thing is that I'm gonna guess that you're not making tons of PC cards. Is that fair?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. So you are going to want to make tons of PC cards. Now, why is it important to make tons of PC cards? We had someone do this recently. So she was struggling. She wants to be a cardiac surgeon, like a cardiothoracic surgeon, but specifically heart. And she said, so she got a 95% on her surgery shelf, despite never getting above like 80, like low 80s on a shelf ever. So what did she do differently? Well, I mean, she made cards on first aid like crazy, right? So she made them herself, 50 cards a day. So that was one thing. And then second is she made a crazy number of PC cards. Or you can make PC cards and you can process all of that beforehand, and you can make sense of all those sentences or like, similar presentations, because obviously it's not going to be the exact same as on your test. But you can make sense of like 80% of it, 70% of it beforehand. And so you're like, I see. High blood pressure and high pulse. This actually sounds like, because normally you would think of if it was compensatory hypertension because she's got high CP because she's got a stroke, and it wasn't because of cocaine or something else, you would think high blood pressure and low pulse. So this seems a little odd. Like this isn't quite what I would expect. So she's got high sympathetic tone overall. Right. So despite the fact that she's got high blood pressure, she also has a high pulse. That makes me think that there's something upstream of this, which is causing both of those things to go up, which, I don't know, maybe cocaine. And if I had a card on cocaine-induced hypertension that leads to a stroke, then like game over. I already know this. The reason why I was able to put that together so fast isn't because I'm a genius, isn't because I made a lot of concept cards, it's literally just because I have a card literally just like this as a PC card. And so I've already made sense of it. And so, there's like a few things here that are like maybe not quite so similar to the card that I made, but like it's pretty much the same. Like it's really, really similar. And so I don't have to think about it because I've already done it 10,000 times. Yeah, this is like a cheat code for step 2. This is a massive cheat code for step 2 and shelf exams.
I had 300 Conky cards to go through, none of them PC. It was mostly just trying to shove information into my brain that will help you stick. But obviously that's not working.
Just having enough knowledge is not sufficient for you to do well. It's kind of like if I trained for a marathon and lifted a lot of weights, and then I just suddenly decided I'm going to play soccer on the weekend. Like, I might have the raw athletic talent to be able to like run around for a long time, but like I am in no way going to be able to do well in a soccer match. So I would recommend probably 25 at least new PC cards per day on any condition in which you're not confident in the classic presentations. There's a Haitian proverb, behind the mountain is more mountains, right? It's like when you solve one problem, it doesn't mean that you're going to have no problems, right? Like you're going to have other problems to solve, but like this is the clear mountain. There's a very clear mountain in front of you. You are anchoring too much on one diagnosis and you're kind of like losing yourself in the rest of the vignette because you haven't done the work to really process those vignettes beforehand and make sense of why each sentence is the way that it is. But like we have seen this improve people's scores like 40 points in a few weeks. This could really be like a spark that turns things around because I mean, like it's very clear that this is affecting a significant portion of questions, at least based on the sample that we looked at and based on what you're telling me. And so this can kill in situations like that. Like it's going to take a lot of work. You're going to have to process a lot of stuff. You're going to have to break some beliefs around like, oh yeah, I don't want my cards to be too long in the front, and like, right, you're going to have to trust us and actually just follow through and do it and execute at a high level. But like we have seen this improve people's scores like 40 points in a few weeks. Anchoring on the first sentence is one of the most expensive habits on shelf and step exam, but it isn't an accident. The people writing these questions know exactly how smart students lose points, and they design questions to exploit it. In my next video, I'll show you the question writing rules they don't want you to know, and the patterns that explain why every hard question feels like a trap. Click here to watch the USMLE question writing rules that they don't want you to know.